last episode I mentioned how Vile plays against them. That's one of the things that I'll definitely give this as, certain things are going to change or not. I understand them not wanting to make 2 versions of all the boss AIs just to combat 2 different playstyles, because Vile's not like Zero moves around like X, but also swings a sword instead or shoots a gun. He is wildly different gameplay-wise, so...
way more complicated, too.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, so I'll give the boss changes a pass to kind of base their difficulty around 2 different playable characters. That's fine. There's not really a lot you can do about that. In the long run, I think it's better because it probably makes it more serviceable overall.
This guy got a balance pass.
This guy, it's not a balance pass. This is just stupid. RT55J, I want to say?
So.
Dies in 1 Storm Tornado. Just 1. Just literally effortless. And this should be the Buster, yeah. So, this is when I'll address this. Not when Zero dies. Spoilers. Fuck it. One of the better changes, in my opinion, to this game versus the original is when you get the Buster part from the Light Capsule, which we're doing right now, you get the Helix Buster Shot. What I've always called that, the purple spiraling death ray from X1 that, for whatever reason, no game or product seems comfortable recreating. Even this one changes it, which, as an aside, very much makes me upset. It just doesn't have the same impact.
Oh, it looks like shit.
I don't think it doesn't look like shit, but it's not right, and I hate it. Just, that's such a great charge shot, and the only other thing that's ever faithfully represented it has been the Nendoroid figure, which, again, I'm going off topic. It still works largely the same. It might not hit behind you like the original does, but that function doesn't matter a lot. Also, the slowdown here is... I'm sorry in advance. If you get the Buster from Zero, which happens in the original if you don't have the Buster part by the time Zero dies, whatever, suicides to Vile, Zero's charged shot is the blue charge shot that he uses in the intro, and it's actually, as far as I remember, I might be wrong, I didn't have time to check this ahead of time, I just now thought about talking about it, is stronger than the Helix charge shot. But you have to go through the entire game without the ability to charge your special weapons in order to get it. And I'm pretty sure it's just when you get there. I don't think you have to have all items or anything, it's just part of the narrative. And I think that's really, really cool, because it's a thing that makes sense. Zero doesn't use this charge shot at any point, he uses his own blue one, so it's a really nice detail. Also bolstered by the fact that if you look at the art and certain products and stuff, they are the same Buster. The Buster that you get, that you've always had in X's full light armor, is the same type of Buster that Zero is using, which you can make a bunch of inferments from that if you wanted to, but whatever. That section back there pisses me off, because if you get out of the right armor, it's gone forever, because you can't get back into it because of the mud layer, and that's just bad game design. And also, I think I was going to mention something else, but it's gone forever. So we'll just move on to... the laggiest fight on this emulator. I'm terribly sorry. We do get to point out some fun oddities, though, that I wish I could confirm on a PSP, but I'm not going to play a PSP to find out. Basically, when he goes invisible, try to see if you can spot the very tip of his tail, because you can, and it's hilarious. And again, I don't know if that's...
Yeah, usually when it gets down to the bottom of the screen, you can see it. Also, you can see, like, the square outline of it, I think?
You can, yeah. I think that's the emulator not being able to emulate the waves of it or some shit. Listen to this voice.
I love that.
They're all so good. We need to remember to not talk over him moving forward, but whatever. So the Buster. I knew there was another half of what I was talking about there. Part of what made having the Buster extremely difficult special is because it could lend itself easily to that narrative angle of, I couldn't find the Buster, I don't know where it was really hard to get to, so I got it from Zero, and that feels kind of good, because, you know, no matter what, you're still getting that final power-up, which goes into this game being all about X's growth and being able to surpass Zero's power level, which, again, is why it pisses me off so much that you have to beat Vile in the intro. It undermines that. What further undermines that is the fact that you can one-shot the Guardian of the Buster in this game, which is weird for a bunch of reasons, because on the one hand, he does have too much health in the original. I fully admit that that fight is kind of dull, just because it's really just a not even a damage race, it's just a slog, even if you know what you're doing. But it was also the body armor that reduces damage by half in that one, so the trade-off was a little bit different because it was you're fighting a tough opponent to get tough.
Right.
It kind of thematically made sense. So you would think that they would keep them that difficult to kind of continue to bar you from getting the Buster easily so that that change could happen easily, but by making it so that you can kill him in one hit, it undermines that entirely because you're probably just going to get this one because you're probably going to have Storm Tornado early. So, it's any not hatred, that's too strong a word, any dislike I have of this game versus the original really comes down to a pile of those types of changes, where it's like, it's different because you want to sell a new game instead of just like a re-release, which, let's face it, is all Capcom really does until very recently. But that's not... That method doesn't sit well with me. Changing things just for the sake of change doesn't really seem worth it to me. And it makes what would otherwise be a really good remake of my favorite game of all time just kind of less great. Mm-hmm. And again, the expectations for me are high. I remember when the trailer for this game came out, I don't know how many times I watched it. I was really considering begging my parents to get me a PSP exclusively to play this, and that never ended up happening. And I don't know how I would have handled it if I had gone into it fresh that way. Alright, real quick before we talk more about the PSP, look at this good-ass background.
Fucking love it.
For as many problems as I think this game has, again, all of which are minor, it has a bunch of details like that kind of bring it right back up. Like I said, originally I just openly hated this game, and playing through it has kind of given me a different outlook on it. It's still lower, but anyway.
Yeah. I actually did buy a PSP as a child. I got like the White Darth Vader one that came with Battlefront or whatever.
I remembered. See,
literally the only games I actually bought for it were Powered Up and Maverick Hunter X at the same day. Everything else was pirated.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I honestly think the only other game, and I never looked into the library, so I might be wrong, would have been Gradius Gaiden for me, because it's the only official, Gradius Collection, which is like the only English release of Gradius Gaiden we ever got, but completely different video. Look at how adorable Thunder Slimer looks as a model. It's wonderful. What's not wonderful is the fact that whereas RT55J is easily killed in one hit, his health is bumped up, so it just makes it longer and longer, and the fight is actually easier, especially because at this point you probably have more armor and abilities and stuff like that, so it's just like, okay, but why? Like, what's the point of this? Please just let this end. It doesn't really amount to anything. There's one of the different chart shots, by the way. Largely the same. Look at that screen. Just delightful.
Jesus.
So largely the same. Storm Tornado's charge shot was basically just a vertical pillar of tornado out directly around X. Mm-hmm. In this one, you fire it forward a little bit so that you don't have to be standing directly underneath the target. It doesn't really come into handy a whole lot from what I've seen, but...
I think you can aim Chameleon Sting up and down now.
You can, yeah. But conversely, it doesn't split. So instead of firing out one projectile that kind of bursts out into 3 pieces of shrapnel, more or less, it just comes out as 3, which, again, super minor, doesn't actually matter, but to me, a crazy person, that drives me insane. And I would normally go up to get the heart tank up there, but they made it so that you basically need Boomerang Cutter to get it now, instead of being able to do some clever dashing, which I do in both of my runs in the Complete Collection, so... again, just kind of weird changes. I think that one might actually be one of my least favorite. No, there is a later one that's worse. But yeah, it's just extra padding. And again, it might sound weird and contradictory, because when we're going through X8, I mentioned how I kind of appreciate that there's more backtracking in that one. But that game was new and designed around it, as opposed to this one where you probably already know about it going into it, and it just doesn't feel designed for it because of the overall length. Doesn't sit well with me.
Well, this voice.
Do you think Commander Sigma is insane, X? He's no commander.
Only one that I don't agree with.
Sounds like a therapist.
It doesn't fit Mandrill at all.
You never thought that maybe Sigma was right and you were wrong? I don't like thinking either. Maybe we can find the answer together in battle.
Yeah, so just not fitting at all. All my Groovism myth fucking ruined all of my commentary for this exact moment. You punch lightning earthquakes. That's not the right voice for you. I think I might... Oh yeah, so I'm trying to get him to do all of his attacks here. He does a drill arm dash later on. It might be something that we end up seeing in the fortress fight. I give up at some point soon, probably when he gets a little closer to killing me, because I'm not focused on dodging, because once I actually start to quote-unquote try, this is one of the fights that is infinitely more trivial. He can't move. There is literally no way, unless you're inept, that you can't stunlock him this way. There's no Grayson vulnerability after the ice breaks, so he doesn't have an opportunity to counterattack at all. He is literally unlosable, too, if you've got Shotgun Ice. There's just no excuse for it. And at least in the original, you can kind of muck the timing up, and he might get a dash punch in. I think it even happens to me in my run, but, you know, through getting cocky more than anything. But in this, it's just like, but why? Like, why not? Like, why would you do this way? Just not the best.
To appeal to the PSP audience.
People with no sense in good video game systems. Oh, hot take. Years later,